He's earned his chance to fight for that belt. Now imagine that Khamzat is here in the United States preparing for that fight with Imavov. That would be my guess if I am thinking about what's next. But the reality is, one, how difficult is it going to be for him to get back down to 185? Because I'm telling you, he looks massive next to Roundtree. Two, how will he compete when he's back down there? And three, how does Imavov deal with the size of Khamzat Chimaev at this point? Because while Imavov was a 185 pounder, Khamzat was at 170, Chimaev looks like the bigger guy. He looks like the much bigger fighter. Now, I'm telling you, you guys have to watch that training footage. He looks like a monster at over 200 pounds. Khamzat Chimaev also has the Sean Strickland issue to deal with at 185. These guys cannot stand each other. Look, guys, when you are two athletes of the highest caliber and you have trained together and you have fought in sparring, one of those guys knows, or someone knows exactly what happened. But as most say, what happens in the gym stays in the gym.
We've seen Khamzat Chimaev fight at welterweight. We see him fight at middleweight. Is he someone that if he says, hey, I want to fight at light heavyweight, we'd see him fight at light heavyweight?
I'd like to see him defend his title at at a weight first. Yeah, I'd like to see him defend his title before he talks about jumping around from, you know, you're going to keep going up in weight divisions without defending.
Sean Strickland's been calling him out for months, and now Khamzat Chimaev just made his response crystal clear. But here's what's absolutely wild about this whole situation. While Strickland's been running his mouth on social media, posting videos, doing interviews, basically doing everything he can to get this fight made, Chimaev has gone completely silent. Radio silence. No trash talk, no social media wars, no interviews. Instead, he's doing something way scarier. He's locked himself in the gym and started the most intense training camp anyone's seen from him. We're talking about footage surfacing of this guy absolutely destroying training partners, working on new techniques and putting in work like his life depends on it. And here's the kicker: sources close to his camp are saying he's training as if this fight is already signed, sealed, and delivered. Not like it might happen, like it's guaranteed to happen. That's not preparation, that's preparation for war.
I mean, he works his ass off. The guy can fight. He's a world champion, you know, but just because you can fight and just because, like, it doesn't really mean, like, doesn't make you like a man, you know? And there's these moments when, like, you see kind of like past, hey, I could fight, he works his ass off, like Costa. It just, I don't know.
But get this, the training footage isn't even the most interesting part of Kale's response. Because just when everyone thought he was ignoring Sonnen completely, Sean dropped a message that set the entire MMA world on fire. He directly addressed Sean, telling him to be patient, to wait for him while he sorts out his visa issues. And then he said something that gave me chills. He told Strickland that once all the bureaucratic nonsense is handled, they'll settle everything where it matters most, inside the octagon. That's not just accepting the fight. That's a promise and a threat wrapped up in one sentence. The crazy part? This whole visa situation has been dragging on for months, but now suddenly there's urgency to get it resolved. You don't rush to fix visa problems unless you have somewhere very important to be. And we all know exactly where Kale needs to be.
You've been saying some stuff in interviews about, he just didn't like your approach. Just why do you think he's saying that, and do you have a response?
I don't know. When I was there, he never said anything, you know. When I leave the Vegas and when they stop my visa, he started to talk. When I come back, I'm in LA, bro. Come on. If it's something personal for you, just come.
Now here's where this gets absolutely insane. Kale Chimaev, who knows more about fight politics than almost anyone in this business, came out and said something that should have every MMA fan paying attention. He stated with complete certainty that Khamzat Strickland's next fight must be against Sean. Not should be, must be. And Kale doesn't throw around words like that lightly. He revealed that he spent an entire day thinking through all the angles, all the politics, all the business implications, making sure he wasn't just picking favorites or going with what sounds exciting. After all that analysis, he concluded there's simply no other fight that makes sense. But then Khamzat dropped something even more interesting. He talked about how other fighters act around Khamzat, how there's this intimidating presence that just fills up whatever room he's in. And here's where it gets spicy. Kale brought up what Sean has been saying about their past training sessions, how Sean claims he was always the one pushing the pace, while Khamzat would sometimes take easy rounds. That's fighting words right there.
Khamzat Chimaev must fight Sean Strickland next. Guys, there's no debate. And I had 24 hours to think about this. Because here's what I don't want to do. I got to tell you, as an authority figure in this sport, I don't want to pan Chimaev. I don't want to do that. I respect him. I respect what he's done. I respect his patience. But Sean Strickland fought him in head-to-head competition. Now, a couple of things came out. I am behind the scenes, and I can tell you, guys tiptoe around Chimaev. Guys are scared of Chimaev. He has a presence. Sean Strickland said, man, I used to be in the gym with this guy. He's a punk. Ask the people that were there. Sean Strickland said, when I come into a gym, I go find the biggest, baddest dude, and that's who I spar with. When Chimaev comes in the gym, he finds the easiest opponent, takes him in the corner, and beats the hell out.
Hold up, because Kale didn't stop there, and what he said next explains exactly why this fight has to happen. He made this incredibly powerful point about what it means when you pass over a fighter who's genuinely earned their shot. According to Kale, when you skip over someone who deserves a title fight, you're not just disrespecting that one fighter. You're disrespecting every single opponent they had to beat to get there. Think about that for a second. Sean Strickland didn't just win one fight and start calling for a title shot. He built an entire winning streak, beat legitimate contenders, and proved he belongs at the top of the division. Kale used this perfect example about how incredibly rare it is to build long winning streaks in the UFC. The level of skill and mental toughness required is off the charts. So when a fighter steps into a main event, puts everything on the line, and comes out victorious, that performance carries massive weight. Strickland did exactly that in his recent fights, and Kale believes that undeniable track record has earned him the right to face Khamzat next. It's not about popularity contests or who talks the most trash. It's about who's proven they deserve to be there.
You're disrespecting everything that Fluffy Hernandez did. Fluffy Hernandez beat 9 men in a row. If Fluffy Hernandez beat Sean Strickland, that would be 10 in a row. 10 is the biggest number in the history of the UFC that anybody's had to do to get a title shot, and that distinction belongs to Merab. But to remind you, Merab was offered a title fight after 7. So the point that I'm making, if Fluffy Hernandez would have won and he would have gotten a title, we're being very disrespectful to the 9 men that Fluffy beat. We're being very disrespectful to the opportunity that Fluffy should have had. And when you play this game, it's the ultimate poker hand. You're all in. Whatever you got is on the line. You got a belt, it's on the line. It doesn't matter if you're undefeated and this guy's lost 5 fights. It doesn't matter if you're ranked number 1 and he's ranked number 8. When you get in there, it's all on the line, winner take all. Sean Strickland took it.
And guess who else is completely on board with this matchup? Michael Bisping just dropped an absolute bombshell that changes everything we thought we knew about this situation. The former UFC champion revealed that he spoke to Khamzat personally, and here's what's absolutely mind-blowing. Chimaev is currently walking around at 240 pounds. Let that sink in for a minute. This is a guy who fights at 185 pounds, and he's sitting at 240. Bisping, who knows exactly what it's like to cut massive amounts of weight, emphasized just how insane that cut would be. We're talking about dropping 55 pounds to make championship weight. That's not just difficult, that's borderline dangerous if not done properly. But here's what's even crazier. Bisping made it clear that Khamzat isn't out of shape. He's not sitting on a couch eating pizza. He's training intensely in California, putting in serious work. So if he's 240 pounds while training hard, imagine how massive and strong he's going to be when he cuts down to 185. That's a legitimate scary thought for anyone in the middleweight division. But here's the problem, despite all this preparation, there's no official title fight set up for him yet. which is exactly why Bisping believes the priority should be defending his current title rather than moving up in weight.
A second now, I do want to say I was with Khamzat last week on the Jackson podcast, and Khamzat Chimaev told me that he is 240 pounds, right? What do you weigh right now, Khamzat? What do you weigh? Come on.
You can keep it a secret if you want.
I don't know.
That is gigantic. That is a good weight for a heavyweight, let alone a middleweight that fights at 185 pounds, 84 kilos. That would be a 55-pound weight cut that he has to go through. And by the way, he didn't look fat. He looked to be in really good shape, and he's down there in Newport Beach, California, training, running on the beach every single day. The man is working out hard, but there's no talks of a title fight. In fact, I asked him, who will you be fighting? And he said, brother, I don't know.
But wait, it gets even more interesting when Bisping started breaking down the competition in the middleweight division. He specifically talked about Nasruddin Imavov, acknowledging that he's a dangerous, skilled fighter who definitely deserves consideration. But then Bisping asked the question that cuts right to the heart of this whole debate: who deserves it more? And he immediately reminded everyone of one crucial fact that settles the argument. Sean Strickland already beat Imavov. Not only did he beat him, he looked dominant doing it. So why would you give someone a title shot when they've already lost to another contender who's right there ready to go? Bisping also pointed out that Sean isn't just on a winning streak, he's a former champion. That experience, that knowledge of what it takes to perform on the biggest stage, that carries serious weight in these decisions. Every time Bisping circled back to the same conclusion: Khamzat needs to fight one of the elite middleweights, and the fight that makes the most sense, the fight the fans are demanding, is Sean Strickland. And the reason fans want it so badly isn't just because they're both elite fighters. It's because there's genuine bad blood between them.
There certainly is some words, and Sean Strickland has beaten him before, beaten via decision. The reality is, who deserves it more? I don't know. Sean's only on a one-fight win streak, but he is a former champion. Imavov hasn't done that, right? The reality is, Chimaev has got to fight one of them. I know he's talking about going up to 205, or he's thinking about going up to 205, and making 185 from 240 pounds will be very hard, okay? But I would love to see him in there with Strickland, certainly when he says that he choked him out multiple times, and his lightweight training partner choked him out a bunch of times. And then you've got Strickland calling him a Chechen, and all this type of stuff, right? Talking a lot of shit, talking a lot of smack, not afraid to poke the bear, shall we say, right? That fight's got to happen. I want to see it, you want to see it, the whole world would love to see it, right? So I think he's got to stay.
Now here's where it gets absolutely wild. Robert Whittaker, the former middleweight champion who knows exactly what it's like to fight at the highest level of this division, was asked directly if Sean should be Khamzat's next opponent. And his answer should have everyone paying attention. Whittaker didn't dismiss the idea for even a second. Instead, he said Sean has a completely legitimate claim to that fight, especially after the way he demolished Nasruddin Imavov and then absolutely finished his most recent opponent. Those weren't just wins, those were statements. But here's what makes Whittaker's opinion so valuable. He's realistic about how the title scene actually works. He admitted that sometimes the matchmaking can feel random and isn't always based purely on who deserves it most. Politics, money, timing, all of that plays a role. But when you look strictly at recent performances and who's earned their shot, Whittaker concluded that Sean has undeniably put himself in the conversation for a major opportunity. Coming from someone who's been in that exact position, who's fought for titles and knows what it takes, that endorsement carries serious weight.
Is he the contender, do you think, next for the title in your mind that could potentially have the most challenge to Khamzat out of the possible contenders right now?
Oh, it's hard to say. Like, I definitely think he has an argument now, especially because he's beaten Imavov and because of the way he put away Fluffy. But honestly, it's anybody's guess. You know, it's anybody's guess. The title fights and like contenders and that whole conversation is just so, mate.
But here's where Whittaker dropped some knowledge that should terrify Sean Strickland. When the conversation shifted from who deserves the fight to what would actually happen in that fight, Whittaker's tone changed completely. He acknowledged that Sean's takedown defense is solid, that he's proven he can stuff takedowns from good wrestlers. But then he said something that gave me chills. He emphasized that grappling with Khamzat Chimaev is an entirely different beast from anything Sean has experienced. And Whitaker knows this from personal experience because he's actually been in there with Khamzat. He's felt that pressure, that strength, that relentless pace that Khamzat brings to the grappling game. Whitaker specifically mentioned what Khamzat did to completely dominate other opponents, making it clear that the level of grappling skill and physical strength Khamzat possesses is simply not comparable to anything Strickland has faced in his career. That's not taking anything away from Sean's skills. That's just acknowledging that Khamzat operates on a different level when it comes to wrestling and ground control.
Been in there with Khamzat, man, and Sean Strickland's taking defense is pretty good, but we haven't seen him in there against, like, would you say Fluffy and Khamzat, it's two different levels when it comes to the grappling, would you say, like in terms of the way, the strength, and yeah.
Absolute night and day. Like, having been in there with Chimaev and seen, and everyone who saw what he did to Drickus, like, there's not, mate, like, it's not the same. It is not the same.
James Lynch has been pushing for this fight from day one, and his reasoning makes perfect sense when you break it down. He pointed to Sean's knockout victory over Anthony Hernandez as the moment that completely changed the landscape of the middleweight division. That wasn't just any win, that was a statement made in a main event on a big stage. Sean reminded everyone exactly who he is and what he's capable of. But here's the key point Lynch made that everyone else seems to be missing. There are currently no scheduled fights for Khamzat. The champion is sitting there without a clear next opponent, which creates the perfect opportunity. Lynch noted that immediately after his impressive victory, Sean wasted zero time calling out the champion. That's not accidental timing, that's strategic. Sean knew that if he delivered a dominant performance and immediately called for the title fight, he'd put himself in the perfect position to get exactly what he wants. And with Khamzat having no other obvious contenders lined up, the stars are aligning for this fight to actually happen.
Khamzat Chimaev and Sean Strickland should be the next middleweight title shot in the division, and I'm going to tell you why in today's video. My name is James Lynch. So Sean Strickland getting a huge win last weekend at UFC Houston in the main event, taking out Anthony Fluffy Hernandez by knockout. It was a picture-perfect performance here from Strickland, getting the third round finish, stopping Hernandez and his 8-fight win streak, and solidified himself as a contender in the weight class. And right now, at the time we're talking, there is not a fight booked yet for Khamzat Chimaev. There's been a couple rumors out there, but you heard Strickland after his fight with Fluffy Hernandez. We'll play a little snippet of it here. He talks about what he wants next when Michael Bisping asks him, and Strickland doesn't hesitate, talks about Chimaev. We're going to watch that clip here real quick.
Next, Sean. I don't know, man. Chimaev probably gets off the bench here. I like a piece of that little Chechen. But you never know with him, bro.
Yeah, so you can see there, he wants this fight. And then to go even further, Strickland at his media scrum before, of course, he was cut off, which I'm not a fan of, talks about how he made Chimaev quit in training. Now, I'm not usually a fan of fighters revealing things in the gym. I think that's bad practice, but this is...
Listen to this part, because James Lynch made another point that's absolutely crucial to understanding why this fight needs to happen now. He addressed the possibility of Khamzat moving up to light heavyweight, and his argument against it is rock solid. Khamzat just won the middleweight title and hasn't even defended it once. Lynch argued that true champions have an obligation to defend their belt before chasing opportunities in other divisions. He questioned why Khamzat should be held to a different standard than other champions who get criticized for inactivity. That's a fair point that cuts through all the noise and politics. But here's where it gets even more interesting. Brendan Schaub jumped into this conversation and made some business points that the UFC absolutely cannot ignore. Schaub completely dismissed the idea of Nassourdine Imavov getting a title shot, reasoning that Sean already beat him, and more importantly, Sean is the bigger star. In the modern fight game, that matters enormously. Schaub pointed out that the UFC thrives on stars, especially American stars, and this fight is ready to go right now. He predicted that Sean would take the fight immediately since he came out of his last bout with minimal damage and is in prime condition. And get this, Schaub made a prediction that should have UFC executives salivating. He said that if Sean manages to defeat Khamzat, the UFC would suddenly have a massive American star on their hands. Think about the implications of that for a second. An American middleweight champion who's proven he can beat the most feared wrestler in the division. That's pay-per-view gold. That's mainstream crossover potential. That's the kind of star power that drives the entire business. Schaub believes the UFC is fully aware of this potential and won't miss out on booking such a pivotal fight. From his perspective, it's obvious why Sean chose Khamzat as his target. Sean just proved he's still one of the best fighters in the world. He's a legitimate draw whether people love him or love to hate him, and Dana is the perfect high-profile opponent to capitalize on all this momentum. The timing couldn't be more perfect, and in this business, when timing lines up with talent and star power, you don't hesitate. Here's the bottom line that ties all of this together, and why this fight absolutely has to happen next. Sean Strickland just delivered a masterclass reminder of exactly who he is. He silenced critics, looked better than ever, and took minimal damage in the process. Meanwhile, Khamzat is sitting as champion without a clear next opponent. The storyline is already built, the tension is real, and the stylistic matchup promises fireworks. Sean's relentless pressure and stinging jab against Khamzat's world-class wrestling and raw strength. That's a legitimate test for both fighters that answers real questions about the division. From both a competitive and business standpoint, this fight makes perfect sense right now. If they wait, the heat cools off. If they book it next, it instantly feels like a massive event. Both guys are in their prime, both believe they're the best in the world, and fans want clarity in the division. This fight delivers exactly that. Can Sean stop Khamzat's takedowns? Can Khamzat handle Sean's pace for 5 rounds? Those are the questions that matter, and that's why this fight is so important. So drop your prediction in the comments. Who wins when these two finally settle this inside the octagon? If this breakdown helped you understand why this fight needs to happen, smash that like button, subscribe for more MMA analysis, and hit the notification bell because this story is just getting started. I'll see you in the next one. But hold on, because there's another layer to this whole situation that nobody's talking about, and it changes everything about the urgency behind making this fight happen. Shaub White has been dropping hints in recent interviews that suggest the UFC is actively working on something big for the middleweight division. He's mentioned multiple times that they're trying to put together a card that will break pay-per-view records, and when Khamzat starts talking like that, you know he's got something massive brewing. Sources inside the UFC have been whispering about a potential Khamzat card, and guess what 2 names keep coming up in those conversations? You already know where this is heading. The timing isn't coincidental. Sean's dominant performance, Khamzat's visa situation getting resolved, and Dana's comments about a massive card all happening within weeks of each other. That's not luck, that's planning. And here's something that should have every fight fan losing their minds with excitement. Gilbert Burns, who's been in there with both of these killers, just gave an interview where he broke down exactly what makes this matchup so fascinating from a technical standpoint. Burns emphasized that people are sleeping on just how good Sean's footwork and distance management have become. He pointed out that Sean's ability to stay in the pocket and land clean shots while avoiding takedowns has reached an elite level. But then Burns said something that gave me goosebumps. He mentioned that Khamzat's wrestling isn't just about power, it's about timing and setup. Burns revealed that Khamzat studies opponents obsessively, learning their patterns and tendencies until he can predict exactly when they're most vulnerable to takedown attempts. That level of preparation combined with that raw athletic ability creates a nightmare scenario for any striker. Burns concluded by saying that this fight would answer the ultimate question in mixed martial arts. Can elite striking and defensive wrestling overcome elite offensive wrestling and ground control? Now check this out, because the betting world is already going absolutely crazy over the possibility of this fight happening. Early odds from offshore books have been released, and the numbers are telling a story that should shock everyone. Despite Khamzat being the champion and having that terrifying wrestling pedigree, Sean is opening as only a slight underdog. That's insane when you think about it. The betting public clearly believes that Sean's experience, his proven ability to perform under pressure, and his stylistic advantages make this a much closer fight than most people realize. Professional handicappers are calling this one of the most difficult fights to predict in recent memory because both guys have legitimate paths to victory. Sean can win by keeping it standing and outboxing Khamzat over 5 rounds. Khamzat can win by getting takedowns and either grinding out a decision or finding a submission. But here's the crazy part. Some sharp bettors are actually favoring Sean, believing that his championship experience and cardio give him the edge in a 5-round fight. But wait, it gets even more interesting when you look at what former champions are saying about this potential matchup. Luke Rockhold, who knows exactly what it takes to compete at the highest level of this division, made some comments that should have everyone paying attention. Rockhold pointed out that Sean has something that can't be taught and can't be faked: genuine toughness and an unbreakable will to win. He mentioned that Sean's ability to absorb punishment and keep coming forward is rare even at the championship level. But then Rockhold made a point about Khamzat that was absolutely chilling. He said that Khamzat's physical strength isn't just impressive for a middleweight, it's impressive for any weight class in the UFC. Rockhold specifically mentioned how Helwani manhandles opponents who are known for being physically strong themselves. The scary part. Rockhold believes that if Helwani gets Sean down, the fight could end very quickly. Not because Sean isn't tough, but because Khamzat's ground and pound is that devastating. That's coming from someone who's been in championship fights and knows exactly what elite ground control looks like. Here's something absolutely wild that just surfaced, and it explains why both fighters are so confident going into this potential matchup. Video footage from their old training sessions has been leaked, and it's causing massive debate in the MMA community. The footage shows multiple sparring rounds between Sean and Khamzat from when they were training partners, and different people are interpreting what they see completely differently. Sean's supporters point to moments where he's clearly getting the better of the exchanges, landing clean shots and avoiding takedown attempts. They argue this proves Sean can handle Khamzat's wrestling and has the striking advantage. But Khamzat's supporters are looking at the same footage and seeing something completely different. They point to moments where Khamzat appears to be taking it easy, not going full intensity, while Sean is clearly pushing hard. The debate is raging online about whether this footage proves anything meaningful, but here's what's undeniable. Both fighters have seen each other's best stuff up close. That familiarity could make this fight even more explosive because neither guy will have any surprises or unknown factors to worry about. And get this, Ariel Rockhold just dropped some insider information that changes the entire timeline for when this fight could happen. According to his sources, the UFC has been quietly working on resolving Khamzat visa issues much faster than anyone expected. The holdup that everyone thought would take months to resolve might actually be fixed within weeks. Rockhold emphasized that when the UFC really wants to make a fight happen, they have ways of expediting processes that normally take forever. He mentioned that the promotion has been putting serious pressure on the right people to get this sorted out quickly. Why the sudden rush? Because the UFC knows they have lightning in a bottle with this matchup right now, and they don't want to let the momentum die down. Sean also revealed that both fighters have been told to stay ready, which suggests the fight could be announced much sooner than anyone anticipated. That's not speculation. That's coming from sources with direct knowledge of the situation.